Alright, seniors. Let's skip the preamble and get straight into it. To be honest, is the Snoot game worth playing today? Back in 2020, Goodbye Volcano High released a reveal trailer during one of PlayStation's big showcases. This, unfortunately, brought upon ridicule, but it also garnered a fan base eager to play the game in 2021. However, 2021 came and there was still no news about the release date. Soon after the release trailer, though, a group decided to create a fan game called the Snoot game, made by a bunch of 4chan users who didn't want to wait for TBH to release. They decided to embrace their inner Thanos and do it themselves. They are Cavemanon, Starmanon, Untitled Anon, Comer Anon. Literally everyone listed in the credits has Anon as their last name. Is this supposed to be a joke or something? Like, it's kind of funny, but I don't understand it. Anyways, let's talk about my experience with the game. To be completely honest, I went into this game with hate. From what I've read, I fully expected this game to be one massive bigot burger. After all, a lot of the same people who were praising the Snoot game were also the ones that led harassment campaigns on 4chan and constantly insulted GVH, both before and after release. Co-op, the developers of Goodbye Volcano High, have even voiced their disapproval of the Snoot game. Despite all of that, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take the plunge and personally try this game out. And well, I didn't hate it. I went into it with hate, and I wanted to hate it, but the more I read, the more I could relate. As a loner myself, I could empathize a little more with Anon, the main character, and this version of Fang, more than I could with the Fang from GVH. Of course, that doesn't mean that I agree with all of the incredibly insulting stuff that they say at the beginning, which leads me to my next point, the beginning. Despite what some journalists and some fans of GVH say, this game is not hateful, it's not homophobic, and it's not anti-trans. If someone you know or someone on the internet comments that, that's a telltale sign that they only played about 30 minutes and then called it quits. In fact, the game sort of calls out those people. Like Fang at the beginning, they are overreactive drama queens. And I don't mean to insult anyone, but let's be honest here. Gays, trans, and non-binary people are stereotyped as overreactive for a reason. Like Fang at the beginning, if someone calls them by the wrong pronoun, even if that person literally doesn't know them, they will overreact. That's actually kind of what happened when this game first released. Some played at the beginning and let their anger take control. Despite the overblown reactions, the reality is that there are only two moments where Anon is an actual bigot. The latter half of Ending 1, and at the beginning of the game. And yeah, there are some pretty problematic things like Mr. Suki, or how some of the characters are walking stereotypes, or the few lines that insult Fang, her non-binary self, and other gays. After one specific scene though, one where Fang gets in trouble with the teacher, all of the hate, the edge, the small dick energy from Anon starts to fade away. Unless of course you end up on Ending 1. Then that's it. All of the hate, slight racism, anti-trans shit is essentially done and dusted in about 30 minutes. Say that the edgelord comments from Anon and several other characters just goes away. For the main character though, it starts to tone down after that moment. Although there was one scene that I will take offense to, and that was a direct insult to GVH. It was only one scene, but there was really no need for that. Other than that though, I went through each and every ending, each and every bonus chapter, and I found the whole game to be very intriguing. For those who have already played the Snoot game, this was my experience. Ending 3, Ending 1, Ending 4, and Ending 2. Now that the veterans of the Snoot game can gauge my experience, let's actually talk about the game. Firstly, the game not only has a save button, but it also has a skip button, 2 buttons that GBH lacks and desperately needs. That alone gives the Snoot game a whole point. Secondly, replay value. While GBH has trophies for you to come back and earn, as well as little mini episodes and bonus scenes for you to unlock, it's held back by its extremely strict point limit, lack of skip button, and the fact that in order to earn and see everything, you need a minimum of 6 playthroughs. That, and it's also still pretty buggy. The Snoot game, on the other hand, has more than one ending, and each ending gives you 3 bonus chapters to play. Chapters that range from 20 to 40 minutes long, compared to GBH's minute-long bonus scenes. The caveat, though, is that the Snoot game has had the benefit of being updated and patched up until 2022. Secondly, is that, unlike GBH, Snoot game is a traditional visual novel. Aside from the one animated scene, it's all static background and sprites. That's not to say that that's a bad thing, though. If anything, this gives the Snoot game more freedom to make their characters more animated and expressive. At points, too expressive. Especially with their rage sprites and rage CGs. Between the 2 games, it's incredibly difficult to choose which art style I like. As I've said, Snoot games is very expressive, and it's easier to gauge a character's personality and overall demeanor through their sprites. GBH, on the other hand, is much more polished and high quality. Each character is animated well and is overall more appealing to the eyes. I guess the best way to describe the two is that Snoot game's character sprites are high energy chaos, while GBH is upbeat low energy chill. Which one is better is solely dependent on your own taste, but for me, I prefer GBH's overall art style. Thirdly, the characters themselves. Snoot game not only features most of GBH's cast, but includes brand new characters that really help flesh out the world. Characters such as a principal, more than one teacher, a cab driver who is always around the corner, and many more. Unfortunately, Sage is the only one who doesn't make an appearance, but if I remember right, he does get mentioned by Fang. Knowing that these characters were written and developed from the initial teaser trailer of GBH earns the writer some points, but I have to ask, why are there so many racial stereotype characters? Well, I say many, but there's really only 2. But it's so blatant that when they appeared, I went from seriously to my brain is dead and I don't care anymore. Thankfully, one of these characters, Mr. Suki, only has one scene, so I didn't have to suffer through his dialogue. Rosa, on the other hand, is a blatantly stereotypical Latina that is featured prominently throughout the story. Though, despite being a stereotype, I can't deny that I had a lot of fun reading her dialogue, and if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have changed a thing. The rest of the original cast, though, is vastly different. Fang is an overreactive rager who often doesn't know what to do, and her opinions, suggestions, either get ignored or overruled by her friends. Trish is Fang's toxic and also overreactive rager best friend, who is incredibly unlikable in this game. Reed, in this game, is an actual stoner, and like every stoner in every game ever, is often the voice of reason and has incredible insight. Nazar is not only an athlete, but he's a total bro. Like, I wanted to hang out with him. He's just that cool. For real. Naomi, though, is trash. At least, she is until you play the bonus chapters. Then she's recyclable. And finally, Stella. Here, she still loves fortune telling, but that takes a backseat for her absolute love of anime and Japan. There are very clear differences between the two games' characters, but the biggest and most important difference is how the characters evolve. Note, I'll be referring to Snoot Games' Fang as Lucy from now on. Lucy, like GBH's Fang, is non-binary, only she makes a much bigger deal out of it than Fang. Lucy is incredibly foul-mouthed, quick to anger, and destructive. Her anxiety often takes over and causes her to react before thinking. Fang, on the other hand, doesn't have most of these problems. Sure, like every other high schooler, they have anxiety and troubles, but unlike Lucy, they have an outlet to let it all out and say what they want. That's not to say that Fang is perfect. They're a little bit like Trish in the Snoot game. Selfish and demanding, often putting her wants and needs in front of everyone else's. Oh, and I also forgot to mention this in my GBH video, but Fang's real name is Fatime. In my mind, I can't help but think, why would you ever want to change your name from Fatime to Fang? Fatime is such an awesome name. I don't get it, but anyways. It's pretty clear that there's a lot more for Lucy to overcome as a character. But that alone doesn't mean her evolution is better. What makes a character's evolution great is how it's done and how much time we spend witnessing that change. That's why Snoot Games' characters are just that much better for me. There's a more natural progression with them, and we actually get to spend more time with them. Hell, even Trish here, a character that I really didn't like, was redeemed throughout the bonus chapters, which unlock with each ending you get, making it easier and more accessible for everyone. There's a scene in GBH involving Trish that replaces another scene, and it's so much better than that original scene. It really helps solidifies Fang's and Trish's relationship. But you have to do things so specifically that it doesn't feel natural at all, and most players won't ever see it without a guide. So in essence, there is more for the characters of the Snoot game to work through than GBH, but both have their own problems that require different solutions, and I think both portrayed character growth pretty well. The Snoot game just does it a little better though, thanks to it not being bogged down by an overly strict point system. Lastly, let's cover the story. And before I start, I just want to address some false information. In this game, you, Anon, are not trying to detransition or fix Lucy. I won't spoil anything here, but basically, you are asked, or rather, persuaded to try and turn Lucy into a better person. While that can be construed as fixing her, if you play the game, you'll realize that it wasn't just about Lucy's non-binary self. At least, not entirely. The best way to describe Lucy, at the time of being persuaded to make her a better person, is an anarchist. Not helped with the fact that her best friend not only encourages her, but is actively helping in her destruction. That's mainly why Anon was asked to help. Not to detransition Lucy, but to sort of guide her down a better, less destructive path. Moving past that, the story starts with Anon moving into a new city and a new school after leaving his last one. He is a major loner and is at first a complete dick to everyone around him. He just wants to get through the school year and not deal with anyone. His financial situation isn't that great, so not only does he have to live in a sketchy neighborhood all by himself, but he's the only person in Volcano High to need food assistance. After meeting with the school president, Naomi, and her boyfriend Nazar, Anon was given a tour of the school. During lunch, he was convinced to go see Nazar's older sister's band play that afternoon. Anon, going there just to pizza, was surprised that there were a lot of other students, despite the fact that students were talking shit about the upcoming band. And of course, once Fang, Trish, and Reed started playing, everyone in that room was making fun of them. Without a doubt, the band was shit. And after that disaster, the very next day, you find yourself in the same class as Lucy, Nazar's sister, and are stuck as her lab partner for the rest of the semester. And thus, Anon's last year of high school truly begins. So, after talking extensively about the Snoot game, which of the two is better? Goodbye Volcano High or the Snoot? Well, it's incredibly hard to say, but something I realized when I was writing this script was that both games are basically my high school experiences. Little fun fact about me, the grumpy trash bag that you're watching right now, I had the unfortunate experience of getting tossed to both a charter and a public school. And yeah, both schools were exactly like both of these games. The best way to think about it is that GVH was my charter school experience. It was generally pretty chill, most teachers were a bit strict but fun, and everyone was just really supportive of each other. On the other hand, the Snoot game was my public school. Complete chaos. Fights usually happened every other week, teachers were pretty lax, and drama was everywhere and happened every other day. So in that sense, to me, both games are incredibly realistic to a real school life, which only makes deciding much harder, so let's try this instead. What GVH lacks in replayability, story length, and features, it makes up for it with high quality art and animation, stellar voice acting, an emotional story, characters that I actually care about, and an amazing soundtrack. What the Snoot game lacks in quality art, animation, music, and likable characters, it makes up for that with a lengthier story, an art style that shows more character, replayability, lengthy bonus chapters, features, multiple endings that give vastly different experiences, and a story that not only made me laugh more, but honestly just resonated better. If I really had to choose, then I would choose the Snoot game. I went into this game with nothing but hate and contempt, but after actually giving it a chance, it turned out to give me an experience that I won't be forgetting anytime soon. Both games gave me a great experience. And now that I've talked at length about how the Snoot game isn't what the anti say it is, I have something to say to you Snoot fans. Stop hating on GVH. Maybe you don't like it, and that's totally fine, but please stop flooding the comment sections or the reviews with posts about how much better the Snoot game is. Just because the Snoot game is better, it doesn't mean that Goodbye Volcano High is inherently worse. Using my high school experience as an example, GVH is just a different school. You may like yours better, you may like theirs better, or like me, you like both. But just because you like one school over the other doesn't make the other school a shithole. They're both great in their own ways, and the sooner both sides can come to see that, the better experience we'll all have in both games' communities. So, to be honest, is the Snoot game worth playing today? Fuck yeah. It's free for both PC and Android, so go and play it. Well, there we go. 2 videos back to back. It was exhausting, but I'm glad I got to talk about these 2 amazing games. Now, before I close out, let's get some last words from the cast of Goodbye Volcano High. Trish, what would you tell to someone who's considering GVH?
This is really gay.
Straight to the point and accurate. And you, Fang? what would you tell someone who's considering the Snoot game?
This is pretty great.
Well said, Fang. And with that, goodbye, Volcano High.